Hello and welcome back. Today we're looking at an ambitious piece. It's part memoir, part behavioral medicine analysis, covering childhood abandonment and kinship care in the 1960s.
A really interesting hybrid. Let's dive in.
Okay, so the intent here is obviously very high, but I think the execution is tripping over its own feet a little. The writer is trying to merge this deeply personal story with some hard clinical science. And the first thing that jumps out is the architecture of the piece itself.
The structure.
Exactly. They've made this choice to tell the entire story first, and then there's a whole separate section at the end called medical style summary.
Which is a problem. I mean, I get the impulse. You want to honor the story, you want to honor the science, so you give them each their own space.
Sure.
But the result is this jarring separation. You read this really heartbreaking narrative about the grandmother stepping in. It's emotional, it's raw.
And then you hit this hard stop.
A hard stop. And suddenly you're reading what feels like a dry bulleted list that's basically saying, hey, here's what you just read, but with, bigger words.
It feels like a total reset button, doesn't it? You've built up all this empathy, and then the piece just asks you to cool off and read an abstract.
It just kills the momentum completely. And frankly, it's a bit insulting to the reader's memory.
Yeah.
The medical summary literally retells the plot points we just finished reading. It goes over the move from Texas to Arkansas again, the ages of the boys again, the empty bank accounts.
It's all just repeated?
It's redundant. But I think the bigger issue isn't just the repetition. It's that by separating the science, you've actually stripped it of its power.
Right. The science is supposed to explain why all of this mattered, why the grandmother's actions worked.
Exactly. If you tell me about the remedial effects of kinship care 10 pages after it happened, I've lost that visceral connection.
So what's the fix?
I think it's drastic, but it's necessary. You have to delete the medical style summary as a section. Just get rid of it.
And then what?
And then you take every single one of those concepts and you weave them directly into the narrative scenes themselves.
That seems like a big challenge, right? To do that without bogging down the story with jargon?
It is, but you do it by making the analysis part of the action. Let's take that courtroom scene. It's a pivotal moment.
The grandmother, 73 years old, in front of the judge.
And the judge asks if she needs financial help, and she refuses out of pride. Right now, that just plays as a character moment. She's proud, she's stubborn.
Okay.
But the summary later calls this moral conviction establishing a secure attachment bond. Why wait to tell us that?
Put it right there in the courtroom.
Put it in the courtroom. As she says no, Your Honor, the narrator needs to step in right then and explain that this isn't just pride. Explain in that moment how this refusal is creating a secure attachment bond, that her consistency is the active ingredient saving these boys.
So you show the action and then immediately analyze the psychological weight of that action.
Yes. Make the science feel urgent, not like a footnote. You can do the same thing with the mother's absence. You have those scenes, her missing the football games, the piano recitals.
The empty chair. You feel that.
You feel the emptiness, but you don't know the clinical damage of that empty chair. Later, the draft mentions studies on chronic parental neglect and identity formation.
So move that up.
Move it up. When the kid looks at that empty chair, tell us right then that his brain is struggling with identity formation. Tell us that the lack of a mirror in that moment is damaging his interpersonal trust. It lands so much harder.
It turns it from a simple memoir into a living case study, which is, I think, what the author's really going for.
It creates a show and analyze rhythm.
Instead of tell, then summarize. And it gets rid of the redundancy.
Exactly. You're telling the story once, but with real depth.
Okay, let's pull on that thread of depth, because that gets into authority. This piece wants to be taken seriously as a medical analysis.
Right.
But I found myself sort of stumbling over how they cite their sources.
Oh, the geography list.
The geography list. Studies from the US, the UK, and New Zealand. I think I counted that phrase, or some version of it, at least 4 times.
It's like a rhythmic speed bump every time I hit it. I stopped reading and started wondering, why those 3? Is abandonment psychology different in Germany, in Japan?
It feels like filler. It feels like someone trying to sound academic by just listing places.
It's the trust me I did the research approach, but it actually has the opposite effect. It feels broad and generic.
So what's the suggestion?
You have to swap it out. You have to trade geography for theory, for specificity.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
All right, so back to the grandmother's intervention. Instead of saying studies in New Zealand show kinship care is beneficial, invoke the actual framework.
You mean,
Say something like, this aligns with Bowlby's attachment theory.
and for anyone listening who isn't a psychologist, Bowlby is the big gun here, right?
He's the foundation. He basically defined how a child's security depends on a consistent caregiver. If you drop his name or just the terms of the theory, you instantly signal expertise.
You don't need to list the countries where his books are read.
No, you just use the tool. And this applies to the financial betrayal too. That's a huge moment, the mother draining the bank accounts.
Devastating.
It is, but the text follows it by referencing universities in the US and UK on trust issues. Again, wrong focus.
It just dilutes the horror of it.
Totally. The reader doesn't care where the university is, they want to know what happened inside that child's brain when the money disappeared.
So instead you'd...
Drop the geography and talk about financial trauma triggers. Talk about the specific stress response. Explain how that betrayal creates hypervigilance. Make the science about the action, not the citation.
Keep the reader in the scene. Okay, let's shift to the characters, because if we're analyzing behavior, the subjects need to be fully realized. And I feel like there's a discrepancy in the resolution.
We have a high-definition villain and a low-definition hero.
That's a perfect way to put it. The mother, the antagonist, she is crystal clear. We see her leaving, we see her stealing, we see the empty chair. Her actions are so sharp.
And the grandmother? She's a little bit of a ghost. We're told she's a stabilizing force, a source of love. But those are just abstract nouns.
We don't see the work.
We don't see the grit. There's that moment where she finds the accounts are empty. The text says it caused her deep emotional pain. And then it just pivots straight to the clinical definition of betrayal.
That's a massive missed opportunity.
Massive. This woman is 73 years old. She's just discovered her daughter has robbed her own children blind. Deep emotional pain is a placeholder. We need to be in the scene.
So you want to see her reaction at the bank.
But specifically, we need to see the suppression. If the whole point is that she provided a secure base, we need to see the effort it took. Take us to the bank. The teller says the balance is 0. What does she do?
Does she break down?
Or does she go perfectly still? That's the behavioral medicine angle. If she went pale, if her hands started to shake but she forced a smile for the boys, that is the data point.
Showing her swallowing that panic.
Yes, showing her turning to those boys and saying, it's all gonna be fine, even when she knows it isn't.
Because that act of suppression is the emotional regulation the medical summary talks about later on.
Exactly. But if you don't describe her physically hiding her fear, you can't give her credit for the psychological win. You have to contrast the mother's chaos with the grandmother's manufactured calm.
You could do that with the missed milestones too. The text focuses on the mother not being there.
Which is important, sure, but where was the grandmother? If the mother's chair was empty, was the grandmother's in the front row?
The text implies it, but it doesn't explicitly put her there.
So put her there. Describe her in the seat. Describe her clapping. That visual contrast, the empty seat versus the occupied seat, is the perfect metaphor for compensatory caregiving.
It grounds the theory in reality.
It makes her an active participant in a crisis intervention, not just a concept of goodness.
That idea, moving from concept to active participant, actually leads right to the end of the piece. I felt like the conclusion really struggled to hold on to that unique tone.
Oh, it fell apart for me. A little bit. It just turns into a eulogy.
It really does. It ends with the tombstone inscription, "Forever in our hearts," and some general thoughts about healing. It's sweet, but
It's cliché, and more importantly, it abandons the entire premise of the piece.
right.
You promise a behavioral medicine analysis, and then you end with "forever in our hearts." You've just dropped the scientific lens right at the finish line.
So how do you write a conclusion that has the emotion, but also keeps that medical rigor?
I think you have to reframe the grandmother's death. It isn't just a loss, it's the end of a successful longitudinal study. The piece mentions a photo taken when she was 90 with the grandsons.
Right, it's a great image.
So use it. Don't just say it was a nice photo. Analyze it. Look at those men in the picture. Are they okay? Are they functional adults?
The piece implies they are.
Then that's the clinical finding. That photo is proof that the intervention worked. The author needs to look at that picture and say, this is what long-term emotional resilience looks like.
So frame her whole life not just as a life well lived, but as a triumph of nurture over nature.
Precisely. The biological mother gave them the abandonment, the circumstance. The grandmother provided the nurture. The fact that those men are standing there whole proves that consistent caregiving can literally rewire the damage. That's the thesis.
That's so much more powerful than she will be missed.
It validates the entire experiment. It tells the reader that love wasn't just a feeling here. It was a neurological intervention that saved 3 lives. That's a powerful note to end on.
And it ties everything back to the beginning. Okay, let's wrap this up for the listener. 4 main actionable steps here.
All right, step 1, the big structural change. Tear down that wall between the story and the science. Get rid of the medical summary at the end.
And weave those concepts directly into the scenes as they happen.
Step 2 is about the citations. Stop the US, UK, and New Zealand list. It sounds like filler.
Right. Swap the geography for the psychological mechanism. Use names like Bowlby. Use terms like financial trauma response.
Step 3 is the characterization. We need to see the grandmother's work.
We need that bank scene. Show us her suppressing her panic to protect the boys. Contrast her specific acts of presence against the mother's specific absences.
Exactly. And finally, step 4, stick the landing.
Don't settle for a generic sentimental conclusion. You're writing a behavioral analysis.
Use that final photo as data. Frame her legacy as a successful clinical outcome. Show us that the nurture won.
This piece has so much potential. The story is there, the heart is definitely there. It just needs a structure that can support the science.
Absolutely. And when those 2 things, the story and the analysis, finally click together, I think it's going to be incredible.
We want to see that version. So, to the listener, take these notes, rework the draft, and please send it back to us. We're really excited to see how you blend the tones in the next version.
Can't wait to read it.
That's it for this critique. Now get back to work.